The harder you chase something, the louder you broadcast that you don't have it. That signal, that desperate frequency of lack, is the exact thing keeping your results at arm's length. And if you've built your entire identity around grinding, pushing, and forcing outcomes into existence, what comes next might feel like a personal attack, because the engine you've been running on has a design flaw baked into its foundation. Most people treat effort like a universal solvent. Pour enough hours in, sleep less, hustle more, and eventually reality bends. The productivity gospel has been preached so relentlessly that questioning it feels lazy, dangerous even. But there's a mechanical problem buried inside that logic, and it has everything to do with what you're actually signaling when you white-knuckle your way toward a goal. Think about the last time you wanted something badly. A job, a relationship, a financial target. Remember that tight, almost frantic energy in your chest when you thought about it? That tension carried information. Every action you took from that state was saturated with the vibration of someone who doesn't have the thing yet. And the universe, or your subconscious pattern-matching system, or whatever framework you prefer, responded to the signal, not the effort. This is where hustle culture and aligned manifestation crash into each other head-on. Hustle culture operates on a simple premise. Output determines outcome. More calls, more emails, more hours, more sacrifice. The math seems obvious. Double the input, double the result. And in purely mechanical domains, that's sometimes true. A factory that runs 2 shifts produces more widgets than a factory that runs 1. But you are a biological system running on belief, identity, and emotional state. You respond to internal conditions as much as external ones. A factory doesn't sabotage itself with doubt at 3 a.m. You do. Aligned manifestation works on a different axis entirely. The core mechanic is state first, action second. You match the internal frequency of the outcome before you move toward it. The doing still matters. This isn't about sitting on a couch visualizing checks. The doing just comes from a different place. It comes from someone who already feels the shift, already occupies the identity of the person who has the result. The actions that flow from that state look different. They're targeted, calm, almost weirdly efficient, and they tend to produce results that brute force grinding can't touch. So why do these two approaches collide so violently? Hustle culture requires urgency. Urgency requires lack. You can't feel frantic about something you already have. The moment you strap into the hustle mindset, you're confirming, on a deep somatic level, that the thing is missing. Every 14-hour day reinforces the story. I have to earn this. I have to prove I deserve it. I have to outwork the gap between where I am and where I want to be. That gap is the problem. Manifestation, the kind that actually produces consistent results, collapses the gap internally before it closes externally. You stop living in the distance between here and there. You occupy there emotionally, and then here rearranges to match. The sequence matters enormously. Hustle culture reverses it. It says, rearrange here through sheer force, and eventually you'll arrive at there. Sometimes that works. Often it produces a burned-out person standing in their dream life wondering why it feels hollow. You've seen this. The entrepreneur who hits their revenue target and immediately moves the goalpost. The person who lands the relationship and starts anxiously monitoring it for signs of collapse. The achiever who collects accomplishments like someone filling a hole that keeps getting deeper. The arrival never satisfies because the internal state, the one that drove all that frantic action, was never about having. It was about chasing. The identity became person who pursues, and no amount of achieving can settle that. Here's where it gets mechanical. Your body keeps a running tally of your emotional baseline. Psychologists call it a set point. You have one for happiness, one for stress, one for self-worth. Hustle culture jacks the stress set point through the roof and calls it discipline. Over months and years, your system recalibrates. Chronic tension becomes your normal. Rest starts triggering anxiety because stillness feels like falling behind. Your body literally forgot what calm productivity feels like. Manifestation asks you to do the opposite. Drop into a state of trust. Feel the outcome as already present. Let action arise from alignment rather than panic. For someone whose nervous system has been marinated in hustle for years, this feels like dying. Sitting still when there's work to do. Turning down the overtime. Going for a walk instead of answering emails at 11 at night. The body screams that this is dangerous. Every cell trained on urgency interprets peace as a threat. That's the withdrawal period most people mistake for failure. They try aligned manifestation for 2 weeks, feel the discomfort of slowing down, interpret that discomfort as evidence that it's working poorly, and sprint back to hustle mode. The hustle feels productive again. The anxiety feels familiar, which the brain mislabels as correct, and the cycle restarts. But consider what happens to the people who push through that withdrawal. Their stress set point begins dropping. Actions become selective rather than compulsive. They stop saying yes to everything and start saying yes to the specific moves that carry real leverage. Their output might actually decrease in volume. The quality, though, the precision of each action, increases dramatically. One well-placed conversation replaces 40 cold emails. One clear decision eliminates 6 months of grinding in the wrong direction. This is the part that offends the hustle faithful. Less can produce more, but only when the less comes from a state of clarity rather than laziness. The distinction is everything, and it's invisible from the outside. 2 people can take the same afternoon off. One is avoiding work out of fear. The other is creating space because they trust the next step will become obvious when the noise settles. Same behavior. Radically different internal mechanics, radically different outcomes over time. There's a practical test for this. Ask yourself when you stop working, what do you feel? If the answer is guilt, dread, or a creeping sense that you're falling behind, your action is being driven by lack. Every result you produce from that state carries the fingerprint of the energy that created it. You might build the business, but it'll demand constant feeding because it was born from scarcity. You might attract a relationship, but it'll feel fragile because you hustled your way into it instead of becoming the person it naturally orbits. Now, critics will push back here, and they have a point worth respecting. Plenty of successful people ground their way to the top through pure effort. Discipline matters. Showing up when you don't feel like it matters. The argument against hustle culture can easily slide into an excuse for inaction, and the manifestation community has its share of people using alignment as a synonym for waiting. That criticism is fair. The resolution sits in a specific place. Effort and alignment aren't opposites, they're layers. You can work hard from a state of trust. You can put in long hours without the frantic, desperate energy that poisons results. The issue was never the hours, the issue was always the state behind the hours. A surgeon who operates for 12 hours straight is working hard. A surgeon who operates for 12 hours while panicking about malpractice insurance is working from a fundamentally different place. Same scalpel, same patient. Different hands, emotionally speaking. The shift looks like this in practice. You still set goals, you still take action, you still show up consistently. The difference, you stop using action as a way to manage anxiety about the outcome. You stop equating rest with failure. You stop measuring your worth by your output on any given Tuesday. Action becomes a natural expression of who you're becoming, rather than a desperate attempt to become someone you're afraid you'll never be. Your body knows the difference, even when your mind doesn't. Pay attention to the physical sensation when you sit down to work. Tightness in your jaw, shallow breathing. A driven urgency that borders on panic. That's hustle state. Steady breathing, relaxed shoulders. A quiet certainty that the work matters but the outcome is already moving towards you. That's alignment. Same desk, same laptop, same to-do list. The internal weather determines which version of your results you'll meet in 6 months. One version looks like a life you built brick by anxious brick. Always one bad quarter from collapse. The other looks like a life that seems to organize itself around you, where opportunities arrive with suspicious timing and the right people show up in the right rooms. Both versions required effort. Only one required suffering. The hustle gospel taught you the pain is the price of progress. Aligned action suggests something less comfortable, that your willingness to suffer was never the thing producing results. The results came from the parts of your work that flowed, the moments you were in rhythm, locked in, operating from something deeper than fear. The hustle just happened to be wrapped around those moments taking credit. Strip the hustle away. Keep the flow. Watch what happens when the engine runs clean.